Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a whole new episode of Full Steam Ahead. Hope you like the new intro that we busted out. It is the new year 2024. We got our new background, we got our ticker. We've had a lot of good celebrities, not even celebrities, but I mean future Hall of Famers,
Athletes.
coaches in the future as well of a Major League Baseball team. We hope you enjoyed those interviews. There's more to come, of course, but already hit it is Zoe, and then I got my boy Cantu on the other side. How we feeling?
Man, you know what? After you were saying those things, man, what a start to 2024 for Full Steam Ahead, right?
Huge start.
It's amazing, and we always told you last year, big things coming, and here they are. I love the intro. You know, you kind of did my Bregman kind of bad with that mouth open one, but I like the ending with the bat flip for sure. I liked it.
Of course, God is good, and it's gonna continue on. We're just continue to rise up. We're not planning to go down. It's only one way up. We're gonna continue going up. But of course, this is episode 151. Of course, we've been having a lot of guests on our show, and this is the first time since last year that it's just been us two. So
Yeah.
we're gonna be talking about predicting the Astros rotation and bullpen. Of course, we have our Astros roundup. Salute to Uncle Mike. Congratulations to Michael Brantley on retiring after 15 seasons of baseball. We'll get into a little bit more into that in a minute. And then, of course, some other big news. Minute Maid Park potentially hosting a World Baseball Classic game. I wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
A little
Be
bit more
interesting.
detail into that later on. Of course, MLB Network has been posting their Shredders MLB Top 100 on starting pitchers and catchers. And of course, we'll finish it off with what's the stove cooking in the offseason. But first, we got to go what we have on our topic of this show. Let's predict the Astros rotation and bullpen real quick, Angel, because obviously there's a lot of conversations of how the bullpen's going to look, how the rotation's going to look. You still got some injuries that are probably going to come back into play, and with some healthy players, hopefully in the second half of the season with McCullers, Luis Garcia as well.
Yeah.
So, of course, let's start with you. What do
Okay.
you have in mind of the rotation? Let's start off with the rotation.
And just a reminder to the audience, this is like the lineup we think opening day would be. Again, like you were saying, we expect Lance McCullers and Luis Garcia to slowly work their way to the starting rotation, right? But opening day rotation, you know what? Give me the ace in Framber Valdez. Framber Valdez as the
What
ace.
about this?
You got the second guy in Justin Verlander, followed by Christian Javier. Give me Urquidy in as a fourth spot, and then finishing off in that fifth spot with France, and then
JP France.
JP France. There you go. Now I know there could be a little debate about Urquidy coming out of the bullpen just because he was that odd man out last year, and I wouldn't even say the odd man out. I think it's just injuries and the way the season worked out. He was coming off the bullpen, but I think he's a great starting pitcher. That experience will pay off, and he has a whole off season to get ready for the baseball season. So I think he'll be pretty good in the starting rotation. Now, the bullpen. I think the fairly easy one is the closer, which is Ryan Presley, and
Mhm.
the first setup guy will be Brian Abreu to get that eighth inning. After that, Graveman, and then I feel like this is where it gets a little dicey, right? My two long mans would be Ronald Blanco and Hunter Brown, and your three middle relief pitchers will be Coleman, Forrest Whitley, and Rafael Montero.
Wow.
Yeah,
Forrest Whitley.
you have to put Montero just because that large contract, but I think for Forrest Whitley, it's now or never. I don't think he's going to be a starter in the major league, so maybe he earns a spot in that rotation. And it's a good young arm. I know he's battled injuries, but like again, this is opening day. I don't think you can have too many arms, and I'm sure it'll change throughout the season as well.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure it's gonna change. Interesting one though with Forrest Whitley. A lot of Astros fans have been waiting for this guy. Former first round pick, and I don't even remember what draft he was drafted, either in 16 or 17. I believe, but I mean he's been fighting the injury bug ever since he's come up, and I mean I think Astros fans would like to see him
Yeah.
in an Astros uniform and finally pitch at the big league level because he's always had some setbacks in the minor leagues from Triple A to Double A. So interesting one right there. But let's go with my starting rotation. I gotta flip it.
Okay.
Gotta flip it. I gotta flip it. I mean, there could be, like you were saying, there could be debate on who's in the rotation, who's gonna be the number one, number two guy. Justin Verlander, I believe, is the number one guy. I do say Framber Valdez should be the guy, but Justin Verlander, with the experience, what he's brought to the Astros organization through the years, what he's done on opening day as well, his track record, speaks for itself. And I think JV deserves the number one spot in the rotation. Framber Valdez, of course, he's going to be the number two guy. Christian Javier. So our top three are kind of the same. Really, top four. I got Jose Urquidy as the
Okay.
fourth guy, but number five, I got to stick with Hunter Brown. I believe this organization still believes in him. He the beginning of the season. You remember? I mean, he could have won Rookie of the Month, AL Pitcher of the Month. Not pitcher, but Rookie of the Month. I think either Josh Jung or one of the other rookies had gotten it, but I mean, he started off hot and then kind of cooled off throughout the regular season. And I think this guy is going to rejuvenate himself coming into spring training. He's going to be healthy. He's going to do different on his command, his velocity. You still got Josh Miller still in the back of being the pitching coach, and I feel like Hunter Brown's going to continue to exceed his level until those regular starting pitchers come back, like Luis Garcia and Lance McCullers. Well, it'll be interesting to see where Lance McCullers lands. He could potentially be in the bullpen as a long relief pitcher. So just have to see about that. Bullpen wise, we're kind of similar. Closer, of course, is going to be not Brian Abreu, Ryan Presley. Eighth guy,
Okay.
eighth inning. Yeah, eighth inning guy is going to be Brian Abreu. Seventh inning guy is going to be Kendall Graveman. This is where I go with the middle relief. So you have Rafael Montero, and I do agree he'll be probably in that middle relief role. Give me Bennett Souza.
Okay.
We haven't had a lefty in the bullpen. You didn't name one. I'm gonna name a lefty, and I think Souza is the right guy for the job. He did pretty phenomenal for the Astros in the last part of the 2023 regular season in late September, well, even in early September, late August, I meant. So I think he'd be a beneficial part of that bullpen. Of course, having that lefty reliever in the bullpen as well is going to help them in situational, opponents. If you're either it's going to be in, with the lefties or the righties. Middle relief is the other one's going to be Dylan Coleman. I expect this guy to bring that stuff that he brought to, that he had in KC, bring it to Houston. So be interesting what he does there. Long man, we're going to use JP France, which I could see him piggybacking off Hunter Brown, which they've done that before, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it again. And last but not least, this one was a tough one for me. I'm gonna go with Ronel Blanco. I
Okay.
think he's done a phenomenal job last year. And of course, he was going up and down the minor leagues with the Sugarland Space Cowboys and the Astros. But his experience of pitching from last year's Dominican Winter League, of course, right now he's pitching in the Dominican Winter League. I think it's going to help him a lot coming into this season because the Astros are going to need somebody to rely on just in case they're in a rough and rocky situation, either in a 4-0 game, 5-0 game. They're going to need somebody, and I think Ronel Blanco could carry that load. So I got that.
Yeah, and honestly, going between France and Hunter Brown, I honestly think it comes up to who has the better spring training because if you're
Mhm,
looking at the numbers, like I have the splits right here, they have similar numbers as as a reliever. Hunter Brown pitched 3 innings last year, 3 total innings last year. As a reliever, sorry, 11 batters faced, 1 hit, 2 walks, 1 strikeout, opponent batting an average of 111, which is pretty phenomenal. JP France as a reliever, 3 1/3, ERA of 0, 17 batters faced, 3 hits, 2 doubles allowed, 4 strikeouts, and 214 batting average. But advantage JP France as a starter though. He has a 3.92 ERA. Yeah, both of them slowed down towards the end of the season. Again, it's a long season, and ERA for Hunter Brown was 5.19. And I think even when they were both getting gas, I think JP France was a little bit more effective with with his spots at times
mhm.
than Hunter Brown, just because I think Hunter Brown just lost command at times, and
Yeah.
it was hard for him to get it back. But I mean, you can't go wrong with either of them as a fifth spot. It's just honestly, again, to come full circle. I think it's just who has a better spring training this year.
I think a lot of teams would be wanting to be in the Astros situation of who's starting, who's going to the bullpen. Because think about it, when you have a healthy Lance McCullers, you have a healthy Luis Garcia. That's what, 8 starting pitchers.
Yeah.
My gosh. So, like you said, you can't go either wrong with both of those guys. I do expect Hunter Brown to have a better offseason. Of course, I feel like he could be electric. I feel that command being the biggest issue from last year when you're like you were saying when he was fatigued and usually it'd be in the fourth inning or the fifth inning. I expect him to be better at that this year. So
Hmm.
I think, like you said, you can't go wrong with either or. But majority of of our listings, I think we both had really the same. I think I only had Bennett Sousa, you had Forrest Whitley. We both have Ronel Blanco. So yeah, not a bad job. We'll just have to see what happens when it gets close to spring training. Of course, spring training's not far away. Pitchers and catchers report in February, and of course,
So
the
close.
rest, yeah, and of course, the rest of the Astros roster, coaching staff, and whoever water boys go the next week or or two. But speaking of pitchers and catchers, two Astro players were ranked in MLB Network's top 10 right now. Let's
Oh
start with the
well.
starting pitcher. MLB ranked Justin Verlander as the number 4 starting pitcher in the game of baseball right now. Interesting. Interesting because of course, I mean, we had to take it to X or Twitter, whatever you'd like to call the app, and we had to ask a lot of our followers, what do we think about? Do we agree? Do we disagree? Is he too high, too low, or is he perfect at the right spot? A lot of them were going towards like, well, I don't think he's probably going to regress soon. I don't think he should be probably at number 4. Real quick, Travis, at TOS 1019, he said way too high, still a good pitcher, but he's starting his decline. Sid at Sharp SQ75, he isn't that guy anymore, just how it is. Matt the Dog at Matthew Gaskin _Gaskin. I think we should brace ourselves for a JV regression, which is fine. He's 57 years old. I don't think he's 57 years old, but I mean, the dude ages like fine wine. Think about that, Matt. And then last but not least, Train Emoji at Hunter Brown RBW. He might not even be a top 3 pitcher on his team. Well,
Yikes.
I don't know if he's not a top 3 pitcher because we just named our starting rotation. We predicted, and both of us have him as a number 1 or a number 2 guy. So real quick, let's go through the list. Garrett Cole's number 1, obviously, with the Yankees. Number 2 is Corbin Burns from the Brewers. Number 3 is Zach Gallen with the Diamondbacks. JV's 4. Blake Snell is number 5 as the MLB logo because he is a free agent. Number 6 is Zach Wheeler from the Phillies. 7 is Spencer Strider with the Braves. 8 is Logan Webb with the Giants. 9 is Max Fried from the Braves, which is shocking with that one because he didn't pitch a lot last year because he wasn't healthy. And then 10, Sonny Gray with the newly acquired team he's with as the St. Louis Cardinals. So what do you think about that, Angel? I mean, do you agree with the fans of him being, kind of regressing already, or do you think he's at the right spot? Maybe he needs to be lowered just a little bit with all them other starting pitchers. Give me your opinion.
To a certain extent, I don't agree with the part that says that Justin Verlander's not a top pitcher. I still think he is. Um, but I think Framber's the ace of this team again, just by going at my starting pitching projection. So if I'm saying Framber Valdez is the ace, that means Framber Valdez needs to be on that list, and he needs to be ahead of Justin Verlander. I would say replace Max Fried and put Verlander there, and then put Framber Valdez in maybe Justin Verlander's spot. And I think you know, I think that's a little better for my liking as well. But I still think Justin Verlander's gonna be great for the Astros this year. I mean, are we expecting Detroit Tigers prime Justin
Hmm.
Verlander? Probably not. But is he going to eat up innings, give you quality starts, and do what he's got to do to win ball games? Absolutely, he is. Right. And the thing about Justin Verlander is he's a competitor. I'm sure he hates bad outings. I'm sure he does. So if if he's getting those bad outings, he's going to do everything in his like possibly do to change that. So I still think he's a great piece, like a fundamental piece for this rotation. I think he's gonna be great this year as well.
Yeah, I mean, agree. Not a lot of pitchers could pitch at the ages he at where he's at right now.
Yeah.
Just looking at three Hall of Famers right now, real quick at their stats, their ERA. I got John Smoltz right now. Last year was with the St. Louis Cardinals at the age of 42. He was 1-3 with a 4.26 ERA. Let's go to the professor and Greg Maddux. Last year was with the Dodgers at age 42 as well. He was 2-4 with a 5.09 ERA. Last but not least, the former teammate of theirs, Tom Glavine,
Oh wow.
42 years old with the Atlanta Braves. He was 2-4 with a 5.54 ERA. So yeah, age does catch on. But with Verlander, of course, you got to think about it. He had Tommy John surgery. That could make, a difference in some of these pitchers.
Mhm.
Obviously, you've seen the velocity and some of these guys tick, number, not number one, a point or two, I can say.
Mhm.
But go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, no, no. I was just gonna say. I mean, but I think he's still like I was gonna agree with you. He's still a good pitcher until he shows that he's regressing and the numbers aren't the same like what he did in 2019. Obviously, of course, that's like a one something ERA, but I mean, he still had a great ERA last year. He did pitch very well. Until I see some regressing numbers, losing records, FIP as well comes into place for pitchers, ERA plus, things like that. When it comes to showing a regression on him, then I'll kind of get on board of maybe he's not that guy no more, uh, and go from there.
Man, Jamie Moyer pitched till he was 49 years old.
You see, I don't think Verlander will pitch to
No,
49. I'll give him the age of Tom Brady when he retired.
I don't
I'll
think
give
so,
him
right?
45.
But the reason I bring him up is because in 2008, Jamie Moyer was 45 years old. With the Phillies, he went 16-7, 3.71 ERA. Let me see how many strikeouts he had. I don't see how many innings pitched he had real quick. He had
Isn't that team as well
the one that won
a
the World
World
Series.
Series team?
Yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
196 innings pitched, 123 strikeouts, like allowed 62 walks. Like that's 45 years old.
Hmm.
And the year after that, he was 12-10 with the Phillies, and then 99 with the Phillies. Obviously, the ERA started to kick back a bit, like a little bit, but
Hmm.
it's possible. It's possible.
Yeah. No, no, no way in doubt. It's possible because, like like I was saying with the ages of these Hall of Famers I just announced right now, they all regress. You saw the ERA, and you just you know you hate to see it because those guys were your childhood. I guess you could call them heroes, but you idolize those guys growing up, and everybody's gonna regress one day. And until I see Justin Verlander do that, then that's when I will agree. Well, he's just not that guy anymore.
Yeah.
But I will agree with you with JV needing to be more in the 8, 9, 10 range. I think Blake Snell, he just won a Cy Young, and Justin Verlander's in front of him. Not being biased about it. I mean, it's just the facts. The guy won a Cy Young in both American and National League, and Justin Verlander's in front of him. I mean, I don't know about that. Spencer Strider, of course.
Strike.
Um, Sonny Gray was a finalist for the American League Cy Young. Guys that just miss. Luis Castillo,
Mm-hmm.
which he had a phenomenal year with the Mariners. Pablo Lopez, who led the American
Ooh,
League in
I forgot about him.
strikeouts.
Yeah.
And of course, Framber Valdez, like you were saying, as well. And Kevin Gossman. So,
I feel like out of those three that I missed, I like Luis Castillo, but I feel like there's just like runs where he just can't like pitch, and then there's runs where he looks lights out. And I mean, I think the only reason Framber Valdez is not in this list is because that second half of the season. But I think Pablo
mhm.
Lopez deserves to be up there as well.
Oh,
It's,
I 100% agree.
but it's like, who do you take out? Like, I would say the one you take off, like, like if I'm going, not including Framber Valdez, just adding Pablo Lopez, I would say either Fried or Justin Verlander would be the odd man out, honestly.
I think I'm taking Max Free just for the fact because I told you, I was just saying that right now on the pod. He didn't pitch a full healthy season last year. He was dealing with a bunch of injuries. I think was out for about 2 to 3 months, missing starts due to injuries. I know all of this because I had him on my fantasy team. So
There you go.
I know that
I'm not the
I
only
know
one
that
bringing
feeling.
in fantasy. Look at
You
that.
see, I had to. There's our latest segment of fantasy baseball, which we will maybe get the followers on and try to do a fantasy baseball league maybe this
Oh,
year.
I like that.
Be interesting. See,
Back to back champ, back to back champ over here though.
you
Look at
see,
that.
I already gotta hear it. Gotta hear it. Moving
Oh,
on from this.
and you got to hear for football too.
Oh yeah, that too. Ladies and
Yeah,
gentlemen, your
there
fantasy
you go.
football winner from 2023-2024 ESPN. Calm down. Calm down, JJ McCarthy. Next but on the list is the catchers and MLB Network ranked Yainer Diaz as the number 7 catcher in the game of
I
baseball.
like it.
I was gonna ask you right now, do you like it? But real quick, on the list, you got Ali Rutschmanson with being number 1 guy for the Orioles, Will Smith being number 2 from the Dodgers, 3 being Sean Murphy from the Braves, 4 being Real Muto from the Phils, William Contreras with the Milwaukee Brewers, Wilson Contreras from the Cardinals, Alejandro Kirk from the Blue Jays, Yainer Diaz from the Astros, Cal Riley from the Mariners, and Gabriel Moreno from the Diamondbacks. Diaz led all MLB catchers with a 538 slugging percentage last season, 282 batting average, 100 hits, 23 home runs, 60 RBIs. His 23 home runs were tied fifth among MLB rookies. I got to ask you, Angel, I mean, is this the right call? 8 being on the spot of the top 10, or do you see him possibly a little, he could be a little lower than that?
No, I think the list is spot on. Honestly, um, I feel like some listeners could argue maybe in front of Alejandro Kirk after that little down season, but I think Alejandro Kirk is a phenomenal catcher. Same thing with same argument Wilson Contreras, but I think it's spot on. Is because yes, Wilson and Alejandro Kirk had little off seasons, but that was Yainer Diaz's rookie year. Now the league will adjust, and it'll be interesting to see how, you know, he adjusts to those adjustments. Because again, baseball is a game of adjustments,
Mhm.
and if he can put up the numbers he did this past season, I'm, I'm honestly thinking Yainer Diaz could be a top 5 catcher again. Like if he can repeat those numbers, I'm not saying just hit the long ball, but just get on base, like above 280 batting average. If he hits 20 plus home runs, that's absolutely perfect. Maybe get the RBI numbers up a little bit. I think he would because he will be playing every day now.
Mhm.
And again, I think you're looking at a top 5 catcher. And shout out to I had his name, James Click,
Yeah.
for that trade as well.
I'm about to
Yeah,
say you forgot your shout out right there and then.
exactly. Yeah, James Click. But I shout out to James Click for that trade because again, like if he repeats, if he like again, sophomore slumps are sometimes inevitable, but if you can adjust, you're looking at a top 5 catcher.
Wow, bold take from you. You got right now Ali Rutschmanson, Will Smith, Sean Murphy, JT Realmuto, and number 5 is William Contreras, which Contreras did have a great year with the Brewers.
Yeah, he did.
But I agree. I mean, we talked about it on the Just Fans podcast. Shout out to those guys for allowing us
Oh
to be
yeah,
on their show and talking about Astros baseball.
subscribe.
But yeah, subscribe to their channel. Great Houston sports pod out there. But we talked about Yainer Diaz, and one of the things I'm looking forward for him coming in, from the offseason, going into spring training, is the whip percentage of swinging and missing and reaching and lunging for the ball that's not even in the strike zone. I'm looking for improvement in that aspect, and I think he'll do a phenomenal job doing that because, like you said, he had the home runs, he had the hits, the RBIs. I mean, the power and the contact's there. It's just the matter of him seeing the ball and recognizing what pitch is coming and having the play discipline, obviously at the plate.
And I think honestly, a factor to that. I mean, I'm just speculating here, but I think I don't know. To me, it's a good speculation. I just feel he was trying to do too much. I think he knew he was going to get like in the game a lot, and I know he knew he was the backup to Martin Maldonado, so he was like, I'm here in the plate. I'm gonna try to do everything I can to get on base. Like I'm gonna make sure I get a hit here. And I think at that point you're just swinging away, trying to do a little
Yeah.
bit too much, trying to produce for your team, trying to get more at bats. And I, now that he's getting those at bats, I don't know. Maybe I could see him draw a little bit more walks as well, and like get on base at any way possible.
Yeah, I think with him, no offense to Maldi. Maldi had the defensive and the baseball IQ, but Diaz is a young guy, I think, coming up. I mean, you see the numbers right there offensively, defensively too. He's not that bad. His pop time is one of the best among catchers as well. So, I mean, I do see an improvement year. Like you said, he could be a possible top five catcher at the end of this year, and we could be talking about him being on, the fifth best catcher or the number one best catcher in Major League Baseball. So it'll be interesting to see what he does to improve. Which he's already doing that in the offseason. If you've seen
Yeah.
those videos he'd be posting on Instagram or on X. So shout out to you, Mr. Yainer Diaz. Speaking of shout outs, we got to give our guy one last shout out of his career. Michael Brantley, the Doctor Smooth, the Uncle Mikes, the Tio Miguels, whatever you want to call him. The guy was always there for the players. Of course, you remember that speech he gave in the World Series when they got clobbered by the Philadelphia Phillies, I believe in Game 3.
Game three, because that was the McCullers start.
McCullers, yeah. I mean, the guy did it all, but of course, everybody's here. This is a little bit old news, but we had to mention it per John Morosi. Michael Brantley, five-time All-Star, and one of the most respected players of his generation, has decided to retire. Quote from Michael Brantley: "It's time for me to be home 24/7, watch my kids grow up, and not miss important milestones." Brantley told Rossi. Agree. I completely agree about that. But real quick, with Brantley's tenure as an Astro, two-time All-Star, 2022 World Series champion, career batting average with the Astros Angel is crazy. 305, above 300, 828 OPS. Of course, we had a lot of people. We had a lot of people on X talking about the potential of his numbers becoming a Hall of Famer. Angel, I just got to ask you real quick. I mean, what do you think? Is he, you think he has a shot at Cooperstown?
Man, I'm agree with the followers here on this one. I don't think so. And injuries really played a big part, unfortunately, in that. And I'm looking at his stats right now. The most games he's ever played in his career was in 2014. He was an All Star. It was 156 games. He was third runner up for MVP, and he won a Silver Slugger that year. But after that, it was like he had from 2012 to 2014. He played 149 games, 151 games, and 156 games. And after that, there's a stint where you can see that injuries played a factor. Then 2019 goes back to the 140s, and after that, you know, the rest, right? Like when he was on the field, when he did play, phenomenal player, right? But unfortunately, I think this is a career where it was a great one. Like all respect to Michael Brantley, it was a great career, but just don't think it's like I think just because of the injuries, I don't think it's worthy of a Hall of Fame.
Completely agree. I think Astros Hall of Famer. He could be
Oh
a
yeah,
potential guy for that category.
yeah,
Uh, a candidate, I would say. But Cooperstown, like a lot of people were mentioning about Lance Berkman, I do agree with that. If Lance
yeah,
Berkman couldn't even get in, one of the best switch hitters in the game of baseball, even Morgan Ensberg said it himself, one of the most underrated guys to swing the bat on both sides of the plate. And he got like a one and done kind of thing. I believe it was like 1 point something percent on the ballot. And I mean, he was out the next year. So,
yeah.
yeah. That's crazy, though. You were saying he was third in MVP voting
In
at a time,
2014,
at a time, a young Michael Brantley on the MVP race.
yeah,
That is just crazy.
that year he was batting three. He finished with a batting average of 325, 20 home runs, 97 uh, RBIs. But it's just again an injury played career, and
Which, yeah, I
like
mean,
he never
completely
hit
understand.
over like the most home runs he hit in a season was 22. The most RBIs he had in a season was 97. So it's just like he didn't. I don't think he did enough.
And I'm guessing both of those numbers are with his days with Cleveland,
Uh,
or one of them's with the Astros.
actually, the 22 home runs were with the Astros. Um, and the 97 RBIs were with Cleveland. Yes,
22 home runs in 2019.
yes.
Gosh, that team was so special. Let's not reminisce, but let's think of the good parts of Michael Brantley, of course, that historical catch that will live in
Oh yeah,
Astros postseason infamy, doubling up Aaron Hicks and Aaron Judge
yeah.
at first, throwing him out at first base and making that unbelievable catch. And then another one I didn't even think about was the catch he made in Arlington in one of the postseason games.
Oh, the one where he
He lunged
short
and
the range. Yeah.
he lunged and basically dove at the end. No one even thought about that. I didn't think about it. I know for sure you didn't think
Oh
about it.
yeah.
So, but by all means, shout out to Uncle Mike, Tio Miguel, whatever. I mean, the salute, of course, we've always saw that the salute out there from Michael Brownlee. So shout out to you one last time, Uncle Mike, Doctor Smooth, Tio Miguel. Last but not least, on Astros Roundup, we got to talk about the World Baseball Classic because think about it. The World Cup's coming in 2026, and the World Baseball Classic is coming as well to the
Exciting
U.S.
times.
An exciting year for not just baseball and soccer, but just among sports fans in general. I think this is one of the coolest things to have both those events. Of course, being, the FIFA World Cup, that's like the huge part of the sport. I mean, the biggest thing of marketing and things like that for soccer, but baseball as well. I don't think, I feel like a lot of players from different regions of different countries, Japan, you got to see South Korea, you got to see Australia do what they did. Of course, Cuba. I mean, you have all these phenomenal countries out there that have, these great players. Even one of them from Nicaragua that got signed after a game. So just imagine what one of these World Baseball Classic games could come to the H to Houston, which would be very exciting. I'd feel like we'll both give our opinions on in a minute, but real quick, per Bob Nightingale of USA Today, he said the Rangers and the Astros are the two leading candidates to host the finals of the World Baseball Classic in 2026. He quotes, MLB is strongly leaning towards having the event in a central time zone with a retractable roof ballparks. I mean, being the number two, both of them, of course, in Texas, Arlington having Globe Life Field, Houston having Minute Maid Park, which I would hate to see it leave Miami because I think Miami's just the best spot to have the World Baseball Classic. I don't know about Phoenix. Of course, LA had its time. San Diego has its time. I think it's time to bring somebody fresh and new. And I feel like Arlington and Houston are the great hosts. I would feel like. I mean, Angel, real quick, give me your thoughts. What you're thinking about it of the Juice Box potentially having a WBC game?
It would make much more sense to have it in Houston, honestly. Like unbiased, is like Houston is just a diverse city. People from all over the world, come to here, immigrate to Houston or visit it. So having the World Baseball Classic, oh, that would be huge for the game of baseball. Um, and then it just gives a glimpse of how a Houston sport stadium is. That could lead to more maybe like an All Star game, as well for MLB because I know it's been since 2005 since the Astros have had an All Star game. But I love it having FIFA, the World Cup here, the World Baseball Classic here in Houston would be amazing for all the fans in Houstonians everywhere.
Yeah, just think about it. I think it'd be the World Baseball Classic first, and then the World Cup. So getting
Yeah.
that excitement from the WBC in the baseball aspect, and then bringing soccer, which I know Houston is a huge hotspot for soccer. I mean, like you're saying, this is one of the at least top five diverse cities in America, and I feel like hosting a WBC game would Crane would be making money a lot. I feel like Jim Crane
Oh yeah.
would be making a great bookos of a lot of money. And then think about it too. The I'm thinking of real quick. The entertainment center that he's trying to create that would just bring in more people, more revenue. Obviously making more money for the Astros and the organization and all these other, factors coming into the marketing aspect. But hosting a WBC game in Houston, no offense to Arlington, because obviously you saw who hosted the COVID World Series was Arlington.
Yeah.
So I think both of them, either or, would be great host cities. And venues are perfect. Of course, Globe Life Field's a little bit newer than Minute Maid Park, but having both of them, I think Dallas people would come from Dallas to go to Houston. And I feel like the same vice versa with Houston going to Dallas to go see that because that's a once in a lifetime thing. You never know when that's ever going to happen. It could go back to Miami, it could go back to LA, San Diego. Just have to see. A lot of people are kind of iffy about both. There's some that want to. There's some that are kind of like, I don't know, because of all the factors of the injuries. Obviously Edwin Diaz having um that I think it was a torn ACL coming off the mound. A lot of fatigue in the pitchers, and of course, leading towards injuries. All the speculation, but I think just as an event, I think it's one of the best to have in the city of Houston. And like you said, it could be potentially having an all-star game hosted in the city, which I still believe it will happen before 2030.
Okay. Yeah,
Yep.
I can see that, happening as well. But it is time to move on to what's the stove cooking this offseason now. It's been kind of, I think the stove's been kind of off for the Astros. However, for a lot of teams, they've been making moves. They've been stirring that pot. Starting off with a surprising trade to me, honestly, and a risky one at that. The Boston Red Sox traded left-handed pitcher Chris Sale in cash considerations to the Atlanta Braves in exchange for infielder Vaughn Grissom. Now, Vaughn Grissom in 2022, he was the seventh ranked prospect in the Atlanta Braves system, and he got a glimpse of the major leagues as well. And he did. I mean, he did pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, but risky trade for the Braves. I think they're confident they can turn Chris Sale around because Cristo has been dealing with injuries lately, and that's another pitcher. I know we talked about Justin Verlander. That's another pitcher where age could be a factor as well. He is getting up there in innings. I'm sure that arm with that unique windup's been taking a lot of reps as well. So, and then Vaughn Grissom's a good young infielder as well. But I don't know. And then they would extend sell for to a 2 year, $38 million, 18 million club option for 2026. So, what's your opinion on that, though?
I agree. It could. I think for both teams, I obviously think the Red Sox won on this one just for the fact of their infield depth. They needed another infielder. Of course, you have Trevor Story, um, Emmanuel Valdez, who came from the Astros farm system, but you just don't know the future of that middle infield. I think Vaughn Grisham, being a young talent, he's already had tasted the big leagues. He hit his first home run at Fenway Park as well.
Oh wow.
So I think him being in that Red Sox team, it could benefit the Red Sox. But on the Brave side, yes, it could be risky, but I think if the Braves win a World Series with Chris Sale, I think they win the trade because that's obviously what you got him for. That veteran experience. Obviously, he won the World Series with the Red Sox in 2018. He knows what it takes to get there. And you add him to a deadly rotation. Spencer Strider, Max Fried, Bryce Elder, Charlie Morton, and Chris Sale. Remind you, Bryce Elder was an all-star last year as a rookie. So that was a former Texas Longhorn as well. But I think it could benefit both teams if, like I said, if the Braves win a World Series, I think the Braves win that trade. But it looks like the Red Sox, to me, as of right now, won this trade.
Sure. I mean, I agree. High risk, high reward for the Braves at that. But on paper, looking at it right now, I agree with you. And then the Mariners and the Giants are staying kind of busy as well. I know the Giants just finished off signing Korean outfitter Jung Ho Lee, and they're making and that was a 6 year, $113 million contract. And now they're trading for an former All Star pitcher. The San Francisco Giants acquired starting pitcher Robbie Ray from Seattle from the Mariners for outfitter Mitch Haniger and starting pitcher Anthony Desclafani and cash. This is um, Mitch Haniger will return back to Seattle, which is I think he was a well loved over there as well. But the thing with that trade is that Ray wouldn't be out into the second half of 2024, similar to like a Lance McCullers situation due to Tommy John surgery. And the Mariners weren't done. They acquired Luke Rayleigh from Tampa Bay in exchange for Jose Caballero. Caballero. I don't know. I feel like moves like little moves like this gets me thinking of why not the Astros, right? They didn't
Yeah.
really trade too much for Luke Rayleigh, like he showed potential. And honestly, they didn't really. I think Robbie Ray. I don't even think they got like gave him too much for. Like I don't think the Giants gave him too much like for Robbie Ray either.
Mm-mm.
Like if you're looking at Mitch Haniger, maybe you're looking at a Jake Myers or you know I think that like this Stefani, maybe that's where you know you're looking at maybe honestly or Keedy or even um Luis Garcia or something like that, right? But I don't know. The Mariners are. I feel like they're getting better slowly. Like they're making little moves, but they're also trading away key pieces. So it got me thinking, as like, what exactly are they doing over there?
I think Robbie Ray, just for the fact that ever since he signed that contract with the Mariners, he just hasn't been the same. He just hasn't been that same guy that he was in Toronto. Obviously, of course, everybody reminisces about that time when Alvarez took him deep in the ALDS. But taken away from that part, Anthony, Anthony Disclafani, I think he's not a bad pitcher. Astros faced him last year and they couldn't hit him.
Hmm.
So Mariners getting that guy, bringing back Mitch Haniger, which I feel like the last year I think he was with the Mariners, he didn't do good. Also, a guy that had on my fantasy team. Um, he just didn't do well, and I think he's looking to come back to Seattle and kind of rejuvenate himself and look like the guy that he was when he was with Seattle. So, to me, I think, like you said, the Mariners are slowly getting a little bit better. They're not getting the big house names, but they've been doing a lot of trades lately. And if it's not a trade, it's a little signing of, from here and from there.
Hmm.
But honestly, like you're saying, why not the Astros? Of course, maybe they just don't want to give out them big names. I always think about the Astros from, thinking last year. Think about like what the Dodgers did. They're all saving all that money for Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah,
Uh, that was the biggest thing. Everybody knew that. That was no secret. But they did the little things. They signed JD Martinez. They signed David Peralta. I think another guy was Jason Hayward. They traded for Miguel Rojas when Gavin Lux got hurt, and they still won a bunch of games. They still led the division. Obviously, they lost in the playoffs, but they did what they could with the money and not with the with the money and the little moves that they made. So the Astros right now are in kind of that same situation where the Dodgers were last year, trying to figure out what they're gonna do if they're gonna, which I feel like 90% confident that they're going to re-sign Jose Altuve, but the futures of guys like Alex Bregman, Kyle Tucker, Framber Valdez. So it's, as an Astros fan, you got to feel for like, well, why we're not making these moves, but at the same time too, you got to think of the long term. You got to think of the future, what's going to happen to this team.
absolutely, absolutely. I think you have to save up the money as well. But just like how the Mariners weren't done, San Francisco wasn't done either. They signed Sean Manaea to a 2 year, $28 million contract. That's a great pickup.
Yeah,
It's a
he had a
great
good
pickup.
second half
Yeah, and I think you know what? And again, this got me thinking like with the Astros pitching coaches, I think but they could have easily turned them around. Yeah, they don't have Brent Storm anywhere, but I don't know. Just a little subtle change could make a big difference for some of these players. And there's been a bidding war. I don't know if you heard from players from Japan. And apparently everybody wants them now. So the Chicago Cubs signed left-handed pitcher Shota Imanga to a 4 year deal. I don't quite remember what the number was, the dollar signs were, but it's pretty hefty.
I think it's in the 50 million range, I want to say.
Okay, 50 million. Yeah,
So
it's not
around
bad.
there.
Pretty
Yeah.
pretty good steal. Um, yeah, I mean there've been an influx of Japanese players, and there's gonna be a lot more to come.
Too.
Espe-
There's been a lot.
Especially, you know what I think, and I'm sure they were being looked at and scouted before that, like beforehand. But I think the World Baseball Classic played a big part in that as well.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I think this WBC, it's going to help Houston because it's right there in their spot. All they have to do is just go out there and kind of scout who's playing. That's basically what Nick Casario did from the Texans when Michigan went to NRG and Washington was at NRG for the national championship. He was just scouting for players to see what's going to happen in the future of these guys.
Put up in the bench, yeah. And no, I mean, because now, okay, yes, and I'm sure the front office, like for these organizations, were already scouting players in Japan. Like I'm sure that was that was a must for them, right? But it
Mhm.
just gives the fans an eye of what these Japanese players have. Like I feel since the World Baseball Classic, more like fans that view baseball are knowing these guys' names and
Yeah.
looking up their stats. And I know there's a young guy, and I already forgot his name that like showed up to play in the World Baseball. Like I'm terrible with names. I'm good with faces, terrible with names. That showed up to
You're a
play.
visual kind of guy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That showed up in the World Baseball Classic and he had a good performance. And then after that, everybody knew he threw like a perfect game. He threw a no hitter in Japan. Like
Yamamoto,
there you go. Was that him?
the number one Japan prospect.
Is that him? There you go.
Yeah.
You see, like I'm terrible with names, but yeah, you see, and I feel like it's just giving them like a platform where they can, where all these fans are being able to see.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, go
And
ahead.
just real quick too, I mean, they're gonna have that game in South Korea this year.
Hmm.
I think that's gonna be a huge part right there because you have a lot of these players trailblazing for the future, and Ichiro did that with Japan given MLB Shohei Otani. Of course, there were other Japanese players, but not a guy like Shohei. Same thing as you, Darvish, Korean wise. Ha-Sung Kim comes. Next thing you know, you got Jung Ho Lee. We don't know what he's going to provide. You've seen Masataka Yoshida from Japan as well. There's a lot of these Japanese players, South Korean players, which is great for the game of baseball. It is making the game grow each and every year. So it's outstanding,
It's
honestly.
fun to watch. It's fun to watch, honestly. And then moving on with the hot stove, I think every Astros fans is tired of me saying this team, but the Los Angeles Dodgers make another move. And like you were saying, they signed JD Martinez last year, Jason Hayward to, get better. Now they're signing Teoscar Hernandez to a 1 year, $23.5 million year. And I'm sure Astros fans are familiar with that name because he uh, grew up in the Astros farm system, played a few games with the Astros, and then was traded to Toronto for who was it for? It was not
Was it
Aoki and Teoscar Hernandez
Was it
to
Liriano, Francisco Liriano?
Francisco Liriano. That's his name. I think
Now
the
also
Astros.
you also there was another one being Sergio Romo. Not Sergio Romo,
Yeah,
Roberto
the
Osuna.
Astros. There you go, Roberto Osuna. That's who it is. And then did they trade Ken Giles over there too? Or yeah, there you go. A little murky, but yeah, I got it. But yeah, it's been a lot of things going on. The Mets signed Harrison Bader to 1 year, $10.5 million contract. The Padres signed, like you were saying, Korea and Asian playing right-handed pitcher Wusa go to a 2 year worth $4.5 million with a mutual option in 2026. And Boston Red Sox signed starting pitcher Lucas Giolito to a contract as well. Now, again,
Yeah,
telling you
bro.
like the store's been cooking. Like now we're seeing the little moves go, and I feel like the little moves that you're saying goes a long way to a successful season. And Lucas Giolito shows glimpses of success, and then glimpses of not. It'll be interesting to see how he works out with the Red Sox. But there's been more moves to that. A front office move was made in St. Louis. Former Boston Red Sox chief baseball officer Shane Bloom was named as an advisor to the president of baseball operations. So a lot of things going on, a lot of work behind the scenes, a lot of phone calls being made to different organizations and agents to see what goes on. And I'm sure there's a lot more moves we're going to cover on this podcast before the season starts as well.
Yeah, it's crazy that Blake Snell, Cody Bellinger, I know I'm missing another one. Jorge
Sonny Gray.
Soler, Sonny Gray with the Cardinals already.
Oh, no, Reds. Wasn't it the Reds?
No, nope, nope. Cardinals. Frankie Montas was the Reds.
That's who it was. Okay.
So not a lot of these big names are on the move, but I think coming up here in January, I know for sure before January ends, because pitchers and catchers report in February. Some of these guys are going to be on the move. Just don't know when. Like Stroman, for instance, right now and negotiations and discussions of being with the New York Yankees. So just shows the Yankees are
Oh,
making
Marcus Stroman.
moves.
That's what I was thinking about. There you go.
Yeah, Stroman, the Stro Show. But like Angel said, the stove's going to be cooking pretty soon. Of course, we'll have it here covered. And as always, look at our little ticker down there and follow us on Full Steam Ahead, wherever you get your podcast from Spotify, Apple, Google. Of course, subscribe, follow, leave us a rate, leave us some comments, how we're doing on our podcast, and of course on YouTube. And last but not least, like we had it on our intro, TikTok, um, Twitter, Instagram, follow us on there as well. But Angel, you got anything else before we sign off?
No, thank you for listening. Hopefully, you like the intro. Lorenzo worked hard on that. I'm not gonna take credit because I was all him. So all the rounds of applause to him as well because it was really good. I really enjoyed it.
We a team, baby. We a team. We a team. I'm not gonna take credit for just one person. But until then, we'll talk to y'all next week. Hopefully, more Astros news comes up to upon, or maybe another interview. We'll see. Until then, y'all stay safe out there. Have a blessed weekend. We'll talk to y'all later.